Hi, everybody. You are watching the Procure Smarter podcast. I am your host, Dr. Sharon Cook. This episode and every episode is sponsored by Procure Smart. We are an FF&E boutique purchasing agency specializing in new construction, renovation, and conversion. If you are working on a project in 2022, 2023, we would love to work with you. We are super experienced, super easy to work with, and our pricing is amazing. So check us out, everybody. Today, we are going to talk to a really fascinating woman. Her name is Deanna Kemple. She has a great story. She started out in manufacturing. She transitioned into fashion design. So stay tuned for that, everybody. Hi, everybody. We are back. Today, we have Deanna Kemple. Like I told you a minute ago, she has a fascinating story. She has been through an amazing journey, and we are going to talk a little bit about, not a little bit, we're going to talk a lot about that journey for her. Deanna, it's so great for you to join me here today. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you, Sharon, for having me. It's an honor, and I'm excited to be here and talk to you and share my story and whatever value it might bring to your audience.
Well, I think you have a lot. We're going to start out with baby steps, though. One thing that is near and dear to my heart is manufacturing, and part of your career that you excelled at was in manufacturing, right? So tell me how, don't go into your deep, dark childhood, but how did you get into manufacturing?
So actually, my late husband and I had several businesses together. We were in the automotive industry and he was into manufacturing. So as our relationship progressed and we got engaged, I got more involved with the business. I started out as like a very basic level doing like administrative stuff. And, he realized very quickly that I was an asset. And I got involved with the office manager and purchasing and just getting involved in those supplier relationships. And he quickly moved me up to a more leadership position because I did take over. I'm a type A all the way. It's good and bad. Yes. Sometimes people are intimidated by that or scared by that, but it really helped in that industry and in that role. I was able to get a lot done, and I helped in creating a lot of efficiencies within our manufacturing process.
Now, you absolutely do have to be a type A personality. You kind of have to be a little bit of what I consider a badass to come into manufacturing as a woman, because the men respond to a certain tone in your voice.
Yeah.
And so you have to, and you have to do it. And I work in construction now, and it is the same way. You have to have a little bit of an attitude.
Yeah, very male dominated. And so this is probably a little extreme, and I don't know if this is gonna be too much. You can
no, it's never too much. Tell me.
So there was one time we were seeing the lag, our cost per unit was going up, and our operations, our COO was not like getting it done. So I brought all our leadership in, and I really said, I said to all of them, I'm the only female in our leadership team, and I said, I've got bigger balls than all of you guys. It's like, and I was just saying that because why aren't you men standing up and taking ownership over your processes and over your teams? Because our efficiency and our productivity was going down massively, and it was eating away at our profit margin. And I was just like, oh my God, we got to get this together. So I kind of went off.
No, and sometimes you have to. Sometimes it is nice to be the woman in the room because calmer heads prevail sometimes.
Yes.
But it can be tough. And it's one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about. Being a woman in manufacturing requires a certain, attitude, a certain set of things that other men don't have to think about.
Yeah, I would agree. It wasn't my first choice as a career, but, I became very successful with my late husband, and I learned a lot. We did become ISO certified, so that was a great gave us a little bit more clout in the manufacturing industry, which I think the ISO is different for construction versus automotive, but that was a very intense process, and I think that really helped in terms of like bringing new people in and just keeping people all in the same diligency in regards to like building the transmissions and just our whole internal process period.
Right. So I want to talk a little bit about where you're at today, but to get there, we have to talk about something a little more painful. And that is in 2016, you had a life change, a large
Yes.
life change. What
Huge.
happened?
So my late husband was a huge bodybuilder. He actually needed his third kidney transplant in the last 2.5 to 3 years of his life. His health took a big hit. He needed his third kidney, and his heart was starting to fail. So during that time period, I was administering dialysis, and I really took on a lot of the business operations for all 5 of our businesses, in addition to just managing our household. And when I look back at everything that what I was capable of doing, I'm just like, wow, because I was just on autopilot, and at the same time trying to take care of myself, because I was watching this larger than life man, just life deteriorate day after day after day. Like towards the end, we were in the hospital once a month, then we were in the hospital once a week. And then at the end, he died in the hospital from toxicity, and just, his body just gave out. I do have to share, and a lot of people don't know, especially his family, that during that time I was administering dialysis, he was still injecting steroids because he was a big steroid user. And so essentially at the end of the day, he basically killed himself. That's how I look at it, because I was living there with him in and out, and he had given up. So when he passed away, I knew that it was coming. And it was just a very, I think I had prepared myself prior to that. I didn't really grieve until probably a couple of years later, because I the reality of everything that happened. I just kept myself super busy afterwards,
Right.
just to not really deal with it. But yeah, it was a big change. Talk about, I lost my VP role. I kind of was kicked out of the businesses by the family. And it just was a domino effect of, having to start my life over. I used to fly private, used to have the Mercedes, the Ferrari, the big mansion, and that was all taken away. And, I'm way happier today.
Right.
I'm grateful for my journey and all those incredible experiences. But it was a big turning point in my life. Huge.
Right. And, you talk so openly about, not only did you lose your husband, but you lost a lifestyle.
Yes.
And I know from having had career changes where you feel like you're not bringing in that money anymore. And it takes a hit on your self-esteem.
Big time.
Yeah.
Big time. Yeah.
So what did you do? How did you, and I know from watching one of your videos, you didn't grieve. It took you a couple years to find time to grieve because you were in a survival mode.
Yes.
So what did you do to survive?
Oh, wow. So yeah, it was, I had bought a townhouse when I was in my early 20s. So luckily I held on to that during my marriage. So I was able to move back into that home. And there are a lot of resources out there that afforded me the ability to live in that home, not having to pay the mortgage through government programs and all that. And so that was that was good. People
Right.
there's tons of resources out there. Anybody's listening, you're having a hard time, look into your resources. I was working 5 jobs. Then I ended up I had to go to the food pantry to get food because I had no money for food. I was living below poverty. My first job was selling furniture at Art Van, and that was very humbling. Okay, very humbling. And I hate retail. I never want to have to work with retail. But that was the beginning of rebuilding my life, and just having, because I hadn't worked for anyone since I was 16. I had always been an entrepreneur. When my late husband and I, we had our businesses for 15 years. And so, that was a huge, huge transition, and, a big shock to the ego as well. Like you said, your self-esteem, because I wasn't used to answering to anybody.
Right.
I pretty basically called the shots for a very long time. So that was a huge adjustment. I'm a fighter. So, a lot of my girlfriends were just like, how are you not balled up in the corner right now, rocking back and forth? And I'm just like, well, I have to keep going.
Right.
And at that time I was in court with the family because I did have ownership in the businesses. So they were trying to make me walk away with nothing, but I ended up getting a small settlement at the end of the day. And I was really focused on I had always wanted to become a fashion designer. So I really took those those resources and started down that path, about a year later.
Right.
So,
Right. And I think that is one of the things that I admired the most about your story. And I get a little choked up about it because I watch so many of your videos. I feel like I know you a little bit now.
aw.
But here you are, you are in survivor mode and something in you sparks and
Yeah.
you're like, listen, I have some creativeness in me. I'm not dead. I'm going to keep going. And this is the path I want to take. And you started a clothing line.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Honestly, though, I think I didn't go to school for clothing. I was more accounting and business. I should have done a little bit more research and came up with a little bit more of a sharper business plan because and this is what I'm saying, when I just kept myself so busy instead of grieving, I just went all in. Like I put all my chips on red. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
I'm the same
let's
personality.
roll it, red. And so, I told myself I'm gonna do 3 collections, and after the 3rd collection releases, if nothing really happens, then I'm done. I can't keep throwing good money after bad. It's actually, if I would have do it again, I would do it very differently. I wouldn't do it so old school, like, more e-commerce, you know what I mean?
Right.
I just I didn't really have a name, so I should have just done a couple pieces to start out with. But, it is what it is. It was an incredible journey. I learned a lot. And if I could get back into clothing if I wanted to. I just don't know if I have the patience for that at this point.
Right. But you learned a lot, right? Like I was
Yes.
reading on one of your shows that you had to outsource pattern making and you sourced fabric. And I love fashion, but I don't have the patience to do that kind of stuff. But you went all in. You were doing it all.
Yeah, that was really rough, Sharon. I would tell you, I was working a full-time job and I was training people and I was doing diets for people and I was Ubering because I had to keep generating income to just
Right.
to kind of come out of the hole. You talk about the lifestyle I was living, then having everything taken away. I had to dig myself out of that hole, because it was just overnight where I had all this income and then I had nothing. So I was just working nonstop. And when I had to change courses and find all these different resources, I was running around like a chicken with her head cut off. Luckily, where I worked at the time, Stericycle, they were very supportive. They all bought into my dream. They supported my Kickstarter. I actually had a successful Kickstarter raising over $5,000 for my first production order, which was great. But that was some of these designers, I don't know how they do it because that was a lot. And the amount of stress to find a new pattern maker, to find I had all this fabric and all the pattern maker through this consulting company out of New York, out of Soho. And when I had to change directions because they had quoted me something, I got all in bed with them. I sent them the money and then they completely changed all the pricing. I was like, whoa. I yanked my business from them and I had to go source all this stuff individually, which at the end of the day, I didn't need them. I could do it myself at a much cheaper rate.
Right.
So it all worked out, but it was crazy.
Let me ask you up until this point, and I know that you had a little bit of a dark childhood. Up until this point, what do you think the hardest thing you had to learn was? Was it the starting over? Was it the finances? Was it life skills? What did you find to be the hardest?
Coming to peace and finding that internal joy or that internal happiness, however you want to identify with that. Because at the end of the day, you're no matter what you have or where you're at in your journey, you have to find that joy and that peace within. Nothing externally really is going to create that but yourself and that mindset. And when you learn just to live in that space and have faith in your whatever your faith is, keeping your faith and living in that space is it's a hard journey. And some days are, you still have to work hard at it. But everything I went through to get me to where I am today, I am such a different person. And I love who I am today. I really do.
That's amazing that you say that. For women out there who are maybe in similar circumstances and have had to pivot quickly, what is a piece of advice that you would give them if they're looking at a major life change? Where do you start? Where did you start?
I'd say just roll with it. Roll with it. Chase your dream. If you have a dream, go after it because you only live once. Watching someone like they're watching their life deteriorate in front of your eyes, whoever that might be, is a real eye opener. And if you, regardless of where you are and you have to pivot, just roll with it and just know there are tons of resources. There's tons of people out there that are willing to help you and talk you through it and be supportive and give you any advice that might help you get through your journey the best that you can.
Right. Good advice. Okay. So you put 3 collections out. You had some modest success with it, right?
Yes. Yes, I did.
You had one of the things that caught my attention was you orchestrated a show that had its charity roots in human trafficking. Is that right?
Correct. Yes.
And that is an important topic for you.
Yes, it is.
Share what you feel like sharing, but why is that important to you?
So at 17, I was a victim of human trafficking, and I was in that for quite a few years. I wasn't very stupid. I was fairly smart before I was able to get myself out of that lifestyle. You know, I did get involved in drugs. I mean, luckily I never was an addict per se. You know, that kind of just comes with the territory. So, you know, luckily I was able to get myself out of that lifestyle and start a brand new life, which was, you know, was with my late husband. And, you know, he was my savior in a lot of ways, you know. But knowing what I know now, you know, at a young age, you don't really know that what you're getting sucked into. You really don't. You don't know the impact that's going to have on your life mentally, emotionally, psychologically. And I've had to do a lot of work on myself, you know, with therapy and just, you know, getting myself to be open to like intimacy and to love and to trusting men. And it's just important for me to spread the awareness, because had I known what that actually meant, maybe I could have found help elsewhere. Because, you know, I had my father was very abusive. He left me and my siblings with just like, it was me and my mom fighting the world. I mean, I was going to the food pantry at a very young age, helping to support my mom, working 2 jobs. And so I fell into a very bad pattern with bad men for quite a while until I met my late husband. And so for me, I think it's important to spread awareness, however that may be, and just let people know the different forms of human trafficking, what that looks like, and just so that you arm them with knowledge, right? And you know, because that's the superpower, is getting that information out there, which nobody wants to talk about. It's very interesting to me when I started that whole campaign for the show. It was a huge show. It was a huge success. Like I mean, people are asking me for probably a year or 2 after that when I would do another event. But I had over 300 people. We had sponsors, and a lot of the stuff that I was able to acquire for the show was all through networking and just talking and going to different events and sharing, like, you know, handing out flyers and just getting people to talk to me and meet with me. And so it was very successful. But I also learned how uncomfortable people are about talking about that subject.
Right.
And, you know, it's important, because you don't know, you know, if you're the girl, that the next door neighbor's girl is being, and human trafficking is, you know, sexual abuse within a family is also considered human trafficking. And so I don't think people realize that, but, you know, it's important to talk about it.
It is very important. And I just want to say, coming from a childhood of abuse, what you put out there is very important, that you talk about it. And I know it can be very tough, but women, girls, boys are going to look at you and say, here is this beautiful, successful woman who survived.
Yeah.
And you did. You're a survivor. A big survivor. You know, you're not a little flower in the corner. You're a big survivor.
Thanks, Sharon. You're making me smile over here.
Okay, let's talk about your next pivot, because you decided to put the fashion away for a little while and you pivoted again. Where did you go next?
Yes, so the fashion will always be my first love. I'm a true fashionista. Like, all my closets are full, tons of shoes. I will always love it. because it is an incredible expression of who you are as an individual. But after I decided to select, after my third collection, after the event was done, I was like, I got an article on how to start a podcast for under $100, and I read it, and I was just like, why the hell not? And I told my cousin, I'm like, and I tell everybody the same story. I was like, I told my cousin, I'm like, I don't know who the fuck I think I am. But
I love that. I love that you said that. I feel the same way about Mike. Who does she think she is?
It was, yeah. So so you get it. So I was just like, and then I talked to my best friend about what the importance of all these different labels I've had to shed over the last couple of years, just actually throughout my whole life, and get to a place where I'm not owning anybody else's labels of me. Like, you can have whatever opinion you want, but I'm not going to own that. I'm going to live empowered and strong and not let anything weigh me down. Of course I have bad days like everybody else, but I don't live in that space. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so I told my best friend, and we came up with the Label Free podcast, and it's been an incredible journey. I don't know about you, but my first introductory episode, I had to do it like 10 times. I drank a bottle of wine and it was that was like the hardest thing ever. And I, even though I had already kind of put myself out there, with the fashion, this is a whole nother stage on where I was putting myself out there again. And when you do that, you are actually you're being very vulnerable. And you're opening yourself up to criticism. You're opening yourself up to people judging you. And when you are doing something like this, when you're becoming like a public person, whatever that might look like, you have to be prepared and just be brave enough to say, I don't care. I'm going to do this anyways, because we all have a voice. God gave us a voice to use it. And so you should just go ahead. And if you feel moved to do something, you should just do it.
Now, you hit 200 episodes last month, right?
In December. Yeah. We ended the year with 200.
That is amazing. I'm at episode 24. So to see you hit 200 is like, oh my, I even went back through your timeline. I'm like, this woman is putting them out like every 2 days.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I absolutely. So when we were going through the pandemic, I actually got furloughed for quite a while. So I really focused in on talking to a lot of people I could connect with. And then I went back to work for a little bit, and then they changed things there, and I ended up like being out of a job again. Yep. And so then I connected with Podmatch, Matchmaker, a bunch of different new services out there specifically for podcasting. And my message has been very well received. And so I was recording like 5 days a week, 5 to 8 guests a day during that whole time where I was unemployed. So I have a huge backlog, and I've just connected with so many people all over the world. And it's just been an incredible journey, and the fact that my statement, my mission, whatever is actually resonating with so many people just tells you how hungry people are to be accepted for who they truly are. And it's just been, and I bring value. So, hopefully I'm bring value to your audience, whoever's listening, that you connected with something that I shared and will inspire you to do something better in your life or to get over whatever might be holding you back. But I've really found the space to be incredible. I don't know about you, but I've just absolutely loved it.
I do. I am loving it. It has turned, I've always said I'm not a very creative person, but I have found this to be my creative outlet, and I love doing it. I love connecting with people. I love that everybody has a story, and if you just ask, they will tell you the story. And I find people are genuinely good and just want to be heard.
Yeah, I would agree. I totally agree.
One of the things that you had said that struck me, you were talking to your producer and you said your guests are really heroes to you.
Yes.
I love that. Is there a particular guest that you go after?
I don't really have to go after guests, to be honest. There's a few people that I might connect with that I say, hey, I'd love to have you on my show. But I feel like anyone that's willing to talk about their struggles or that are living very dynamically, whatever that might look like, even if you have a corporate job like me, but are doing many different things outside of your typical day, I think that's a person that's stepping outside of the box and living a dynamic life. Because I feel like there's so many of us that hold ourselves back. I mean, I was doing it for a very long time, just and it's very uncomfortable to step out of your comfort zone. So anyone that's willing to step out of the comfort zone, to me, is a hero, someone that can be an example, because we all have an audience, right? Everyone has an audience. No matter who you are, you have an audience. Someone wants to hear from you, so you should not hesitate to tell your story.
Right.
So that's how I look at it. Obviously, I want it to be someone that's going to want to share those details, with my audience.
Right. What's the dream? What's next for you?
What's the dream? Honestly, I'm getting remarried, and
Are you? Congrats.
Yes, we are diligently working to start a family. So we had a meeting with the fertility doctor last week, and so that is really hopefully the next step in my life. I'm a little bit older, but I'm healthy, and it's not unheard of these days. Women are having babies into their 40s. So I'm grateful that I've met a wonderful man that's wanting to take that journey with me.
Nice. That's amazing. Okay, I have one final question. Have you thought about writing a book? Because I think it would be fantastic.
You are not the only person that's ever said that. I talk to a lot of authors, and like the listening to their journey of writing a book is so incredible to me, because that takes such a commitment.
Mhm.
And you have to really work hard at remembering a lot of things, especially if you're going to write about like stories in your life. And I think that I've blocked out a lot of stuff. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And I talk to my cousins, my mom, my sisters, and they remind me, they tell stories to me that I'm like, oh my God, I don't remember that.
Right.
So if I was to write a book, I'd really have to figure out what it was going to be about. And I'd really have to enlist help from my family and friends to remind me of some of the stuff that I've gone through,
Mhm.
because some of it, like, I've just completely blocked out, and I'm like, I don't want to remember that.
Right.
Good and bad.
Right.
So
yeah, and it could be traumatizing to have to kind of bring all that back up. Could be cathartic, could be very healing to bring it back up to you. Keep it in mind, I would buy the book.
Oh, you're so sweet. I love you. You're just awesome.
All right. Now I want to give, usually this is the point where I'm like, is there something you want to promote? Do you want, how can people reach you? This is your moment. What would you like to say?
Sure. Well, thank you, Sharon, so much for having me. Everybody can find me on all the social media channels. I'm on LinkedIn, Deanna Kempel. I also have a podcast page on LinkedIn. On Instagram, I've got two, Deanna Marie Lifestyle, and then the podcast, Label Free Podcast, then Facebook as well. I'm everywhere that we're supposed to be. It's hard to manage sometimes, but yeah, I'm very open. I have a website too, labelfreepodcast.com. So whatever you would want to reach out to me, just go ahead. I'm an open book.
Nice.
Reach out, say hi.
I love it. Congratulations on the marriage, on the wedding, and good wishes for baby making.
Yes.
And stay in touch. I would love to hear how you're doing.
Yes, definitely will do, Sharon. Thank you so much.
Okay, I'm going to stop recording. All right, everybody, that was Deanna Kempel, and oh my God, is she not amazing? She has so much to share, her life experience, how forthcoming she was. Deanna, when you listen to this, please know that I am deeply honored that you shared your story with me. All right, everybody, that is our episode for this week. Please keep us in mind if you need procurement assistance. We would love to help, and I will see you guys next week. Goodbye.